Welcome, everybody. How are you doing this morning? It's beautiful here in North Norfolk, nice and sunny, but chilly, which is good. My name is John Fagan. I'll be hosting you today. I'm the CEO here at Scribe, and the topic today is time and stress management for clerks at year end. And we have a guest speaker, Beckie Whitehouse.
Right. Can you all see that? It keeps disappearing. Every time I go back in, it's disappearing. Anyway, so this is what we're talking about this morning, time and stress management, but with a particular focus on the year end, because as we know, that is coming up. So this is me, which we have talked about a little bit already. And as John said, I've been clerking now for 10 years. I've done 4 different parishes. They're all the same, but all different. There are always potholes, there are always hedges, there are always trees and play equipment. But the way the councils work have been very different. I've done a lot with committees, some with no committees, some with only meetings every other month, and some with a meeting every 2 weeks. So a whole range. I'm also a coach and an NLP practitioner, so that's about the way we think, a hypnotherapist and an EFT practitioner. And when I work with anybody, I put a selection of all those together. We're all different, we all think differently, and we all work in slightly different ways. So I love being able to have a range of things to help people with. Okay, so this morning, this is what we're going to cover. So we're going to talk about time management, and first of all, what we actually mean by that, and then some tips and tools to help us work through that, think about how we can improve it. And lots of times it's not massive changes we need to make. It's just a little tweak here and there. So don't panic that, you know, your time management is not great. You've got to change the whole way you work, because it's really not about that. And then we'll talk about stress management, what it is, and some tips to deal with that. We will also touch a little bit on anxiety, because they very often go together and they have very similar symptoms, but they are different. And then for me, I always think that time management and stress management are really interlinked. You know, when we don't have enough time, or we haven't given ourselves enough time, we panic and we get stressed. And then when we get stressed, our time management goes completely out the window. Maybe you're like me and you're like that. And I know at times when I've been, especially the first couple of times I did those end of year accounts, you know, I'd get so stressed and the family would be saying, just stop for a bit. And I'd be like, no, I need to find this. And I really remember it was 30p that was missing, 30p that was missing on the spreadsheet. And I was determined to find it. And as it turned out, it wasn't my fault at all. And in those days, I didn't know that you rounded the figures up, so nobody noticed anyway. So there I was, getting myself in a right flat and a right state, and it didn't matter. So, and just a note about the year end, we know it's coming. It's a bit like Christmas. It comes around at the same time of year every year, and there's plenty we can do in advance to get ourselves prepared and get ourselves ready. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And I apologise for the dog. I don't know why she's barking. She has just been out. She obviously wants to join in.
We're all big fans of dogs, so no problems.
She might go through a whole pot of snacks before we finish. Okay, so time management. So this is all about efficient working and about using our time to increase or maximize our productivity. So a lot of it comes down to organization. I know many of us are part-time clerks, maybe for more than one council. It may be that you're juggling another job, kids, other older parents, other responsibilities. So what I've done for the first time actually this year is I have mapped out my week, and I have actually gone through, so I know, and I've done it quite roughly. You could do it in far more detail, but I've done morning, sort of lunchtime, afternoon. So I know what I'm doing in each of those sections of the day. I know which evenings I've got parish council meetings. I know which evenings I've got a running group, and I know which evenings I've got other things. And you can do this for the week. You can do it for the day. You can do it for the month. You can do it for the year. I don't know how many of you have those big, yearly wall calendars where you can mark off what you know is coming up, what you know is when. So I've touched on this about how important it is if you are juggling more than one thing, more than one parish. I've always done one parish because I've always thought that one end of year was enough for me. So when you have all these jobs, there are different ways. People say there are different ways to get yourself motivated to get these jobs done. So I'm going to talk through a few of those, and probably one of them you'll have a gut reaction to it. So listen to your gut. It's something we don't do very often, but it's often right. Our gut reaction is often right. And then we talk over it with our heads. We manage to convince ourselves it's not. So one way is to start with the most important job, the one that you think is the most important. Another way is to start with the most difficult job. So some people really like to start with a difficult one, and that will be different for each of us. There'll be some of us who will really hate doing minutes. There'll be some of us who really hate doing, that monthly bank reconciliation, and it's going to be different for each of us. So some people start with that one that's really difficult, because that will get your momentum going. Others say, if that feels too much, if that big one or that one that feels difficult is too much, start with the easy ones. Do a couple of the easy jobs, maybe some of those emails or a phone call you've got to make, because then you're kind of getting yourself going, if you like. And then if you imagine it's a bit like running a race, you start off and maybe you warm up and then you're ready to go. So then you're ready to tackle that big one, the one that you would procrastinate on or put off. If none of those appeal, this was one I learned quite recently actually, was put the pinger on or the stopwatch on your phone for 5 minutes and just start for 5 minutes. After that 5 minutes, you can stop and do something else, or you can carry on, because so often with lots of us, it is the getting going bit. Once you're going, it's fine. If you've got children, you might have noticed this with their homework. They moan so much about doing their homework, but I find myself saying, which is something that I remember my parents saying, is you could have done it by now. All this moaning that you've done, and you could have done it. The other thing is, if 5 minutes doesn't say right, set your own time. Maybe you say, actually, I'm going to focus on this for 15 minutes, or I'm going to do it for an hour. Whatever feels right to you. There's no right or wrong, really. This is just about getting you started and getting these jobs done. Okay, so I want to talk about prioritizing. We have a massive list of things to do generally, a huge list of things we need to chase up, district, county councils, councillors we need to talk to, residents we need to talk to, agendas we need to publish, finances we need to sort. The list goes on and on. So when you prioritize, I'm not going to tell you there's any particularly right or wrong way to do it. You may decide it's, to do with the deadline. When do these things need to be done? Or it might be on your available hours. So let's say it's a Wednesday and you only work 2 hours on a Wednesday. So you might think, okay, what can I actually get done in those 2 hours? So you might choose that activity. Or you might look at actually which one is going to have the biggest impact for me. So you might have a list of jobs, but you think actually, if I do that one, I can answer these questions, I can put it on the agenda, I can tick off my action from the minutes, whatever it is. And I just wanted to remind you that sometimes we do need help. And I know lots of us as clerks work alone. We work from home, and we may not have anybody to bounce ideas off or just say, have I got completely the wrong end of the stick about this bit of legislation? Have I misunderstood it completely? And I wanted to say it's not a sign of weakness to stick your hand up and say, actually, could somebody just help me with this, clarify it, or just run through this idea with me? And there's loads of different ways. You know, we have the Clerks Facebook groups, a wealth of information in there from all of us who have done similar or different things. So do ask. You know, there are the guys at Scribe, there are the guys at our national and local, I can't think of the word's gone out of my head, but you know what I mean, our local groups. So do ask. And even our internal auditors, you know, I have found mine actually, when I do ask, it never says to me, oh, you're being ridiculous. You know, why are you even worrying about that? Or don't you understand how that works? Or, of course, you know, they're really, really helpful and they're there to help us, so do ask. Okay, so let's go on and talk about time management for the year end. As we have said, we know that the year end is coming. It's always in the same month. It doesn't change. So it may be that you need to clear your diary. You might look at it and say, actually, I am just going to say this week, this is what I'm doing, or this day, I'm just going to focus on the year end. Know the dates of your meetings. So whether you have, you know, a finance committee meeting, your parish council meeting, the meetings with your internal auditor, depending how you work, is it virtual? Have you got to take stuff to them? Are they coming to you? All of those things, just be mindful of when they are. And then when your annual parish meeting is, so that's the one with all the residents that we have to have, where we have to justify what we've spent and what we've done, and even your annual parish meeting. So I know people get them confused, but we've got the annual meeting of the parish council and the annual parish meeting. So the annual meeting of the parish council is the one where you decide what your councillors are going to do. You might relook at your committees, all of those kind of things. And then think about, right, what do I need for the year end? Do I need to say, I am having this day? Do I need to turn my phone off? Do I need to say to councillors, actually, this day, this week, I am just focusing on getting the year end done and dusted so that we can sign it off. You know, you might also need a vast quantity of coffee if that's your thing, or make sure you've got your tea bags and milk with you, whatever it is. So let's go on and talk about stress, because it is quite linked. Oh, look, and there's another spelling mistake I didn't spot. So what is stress? Stress is our response to harmful situations. It's a really actually old response, our limbic system. So it is linked to our adrenaline and our fight and flight response. So this goes way, way back to when we were those cave people, okay? And there may have been a saber-toothed beastie approaching us. So our options then were literally to fight it or run away. And that is what our body is preparing us to do. So when we are in a stress response, that's why our breathing increases and our blood pressure increases and our heart rate increases, because either we've got to fight something or we've got to run away as fast as we can. The kind of trouble it is now, our evolution hasn't quite caught up with it. The situations that we find stressful are generally not life-threatening. From time to time they might be, and I'm not saying that we never face, you know, none of us ever face life-threatening situations, but because of this response, this is why we sometimes hear these incredible stories, you know, of people picking up cars, of people dashing into the road and scooping up a child when a car's coming, because of this response. But it does have this effect on our body, you know, that's our breathing and our blood pressure and our heart rate increase does take its toll if we have it all the time. So if we talk about general stress management, okay, so there are lots of ways, and I've just picked a few. One of the ones I often talk about is having boundaries. Okay, so it's okay to have boundaries. So it is okay to say to our counsellors this day, actually, I'm turning my phone off. I'm not answering emails for this time because I am doing this. That's completely okay to say that. It's completely okay to say, actually, I'm not going to work in the evenings. If I've worked all day, that's fine. There's lots of ways to put in your boundaries. You know, if you're in the office, it might be putting a note on the door saying, actually, no interruptions today. It's not going to last forever. And just make sure you get your job done. The next thing is it's really, really important for us to take a break. Okay. Now, there's loads of reasons for this. One of them, it's actually not very good for our eyesight to be staring at a computer all day. It's not using our long vision. So actually, sometimes we need to go and look at something else. So as I'm saying now, I'm looking out into my garden. It's beautiful and frosty. It looks lovely, but you're using your eyes in a different way. And linked to that, I know this can be a challenge for many of us, is to actually take our holiday. So I know as a parish clerk, you take your holiday, nobody does your job when you come back. You work frantically before you go to finish everything. And then when you come back, there's 100 odd emails immediately that you have to respond to. And the temptation it is sometimes, I think, that actually, if I just stay and work, I'm doing the same amount of work. And if I go on holiday, I have a break, yes, but I come back to the same amount of work. But it is really, really important for us to take a complete break. And one thing I have done, even when I'm on holiday at home, and because I work from home, I have been known to lock the parish council laptop away in the filing cabinet. Because I know if I think, oh, I'll just check those emails, it'll be a 10-minute job. It never, ever is. 10 minutes turns into half an hour, and you think, oh, I'll just reply to that one. And that's your day gone. So yeah, be mindful of that. Fresh air and exercise. One of the things I am starting this year is something called net walking. Just getting it right, net walking. So the idea is it's a cross between networking and walking. Being outside in nature is so good for our mental health. Those of you who've known me a bit more, and I have recognized one or two names, will hear me banging on about it all the time. It is so good for us. It gives us a chance to relax. You know, we're out with nature, we're enjoying what she offers us. We're out in the fresh air. Often our problems suddenly seem much more manageable. Those ideas might just pop into your head when you've actually stopped thinking about it. And when I'm talking about exercise, I mean, people do other exercise, but I'm actually talking about getting outside for a walk, you know, in your lunch break, getting that bit of fresh air, that break, walk around the block. Some of you might do much more exercise at the gym or running or playing, you know, sport, rugby, hockey, whatever it is. This is one that I use quite often, especially when I have worked with kids and teens. Okay, a great question to ask is, will it be the end of the world if? So when we're all returning our AGAR forms to Little John, if we ask for an extension because we're not ready, is it going to be the end of the world? If it gets there a day late, is it going to be the end of the world? Generally, the answers are no. If you had a question where it really was going to be the end of the world, you'd do your best to get on and get it done, wouldn't we? But generally, in our line of work, it's not going to be the end of the world. The last thing I wanted to talk about was just mindfulness. Now, I know this is quite a buzzword. It comes up a lot. It's about being present in whatever you're doing. So when I talk about going out and getting your fresh air and maybe being in nature, just be there. Focus on whatever you're looking at, whether that's the trees, whether you're at the coast and it's the beach, whatever it is. And quite often when we do that and we take our focus away from whatever is bothering us, it sort of helps sort it out. The answers come to us, an idea comes to us, we can put it in perspective and think, actually, there's more to life than finding my 30p in these accounts. It really isn't the end of the world. And is that really a good use of my time? Maybe there's other things you could be doing. One of the other ones that I did with my family a lot in lockdown, which was to help everybody, was colouring. And there's some beautiful mindful colouring you can do. And there are some lovely ones. The ones we did actually came from the National Trust, so a little plug for the National Trust. But they were cards. So we did this mindful colouring, and then you'd made a card which you could send somebody as a birthday card or a Christmas card. They do all kinds. Okay, so stress. It has a range of symptoms. I am just going to move you all. There we go. So, yeah, cognitive symptoms. So we have this worrying, we have this lack of focus and concentration, and you often people hear people talk about that. We have the physical symptoms. So that's when maybe we're clenching our jaws. We get a headache. Some people get stomach or chest pains linked to what is happening in our body from this adrenaline response. We might have emotional symptoms. So we might get irritated and frustrated. We might find it difficult to switch off in the evening. Or if, you know, we're at home, our families might notice that we're suddenly quite cross and irritable. Nothing everyone seems to do is right. We're cross with everybody. We might get behavioural symptoms. So we can't sleep. People might bite their nails, or they might begin to neglect their self-care. So maybe they haven't washed their hair for a long time. And this can lead sometimes to reliance on alcohol or drugs. So some of these are the more sort of extreme symptoms, and it may be that they come from when we are in prolonged stress. But it is worth noting them because it can help you help other people and family members as well. So the end of the year can be stressful, but it is likely to be short-term stress. Oh, sorry. But long-term stress, so if there's stress going on for a long time, it can lead to mental health problems. It can lead to heart disease, like high blood pressure or abnormal heart rhythms. It can eventually lead to stroke, things like eating disorders and skin and hair problems, and gastrointestinal problems, particularly, this is quite well known, people talk about it, things like stomach ulcers and irritable bowel syndrome. So there's a whole lot in there. And I mentioned anxiety earlier, and the symptoms for anxiety are quite similar. The difference with anxiety is that it generally tends to be future-based. So when somebody is anxious, they are generally thinking about what might happen. So it's the worry about what could happen, not necessarily what's definitely going to happen, but what might happen. And our stress can be managed a lot through lifestyle changes. Anxiety is slightly different. It can be helped with lifestyle changes, but it might need other interventions as well. So I hope that makes sense. Our stress is our response to a threat in a situation. I probably should have said that, but maybe I covered that earlier. Okay, so we may have additional pressures on us, okay, when we come to the end of the year. Maybe you're a new clerk or you're a new counsel. And I have found that everybody kind of does their accounts, but everybody does it slightly differently. So I've had minimal use of Scribe itself, but I have spoken to two of the RFOs I've worked with, and they've said, actually, both of these councils use it, but they use it a bit differently. People set up spreadsheets in different ways. It may be that you came in partway through the year, or you came in towards the end of the year in the last quarter, so you've got quite a lot to get your head around. It may be that you have a new council. Maybe they're not very experienced. Maybe they haven't been through the end of the year. So part of your job is going to have to be to take your counsellors and explain the processes that we have to go through at the end of the year. It may be that you have challenging counsellors or residents who ask you lots of those awkward questions. I think probably we've all been there, haven't we, with one of those questions when we've just kind of gone, But the thing you can always say then is, leave it with me and I'll get back to you. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no idea that you can't do your job if you come back. I'm going to clarify my answer so I don't tell you an incorrect answer. Come back and tell you. Okay. Something else many of us may need to consider is actually the end of the year always seems to come in the Easter holidays. Okay, I know Easter moves around, the end of year doesn't, but they always seem to be in the Easter holidays. So if you've got kids at home, that might just be something that you need to build in when you're thinking about your diary and your work management and how you're going to do this. It may be that there's something else that you have going on in your family or in your community that you're involved with as well. So just before we finish, there are some things, I haven't touched on this yet, that we can be working on already for the end of the year. So I generally start thinking about the end of the year kind of mid-February onwards. So I'm just sort of double checking things like, have we bought anything? Our assets, is my asset register up to date? Or did we purchase anything this year? Maybe it's a new laptop or a printer, or did we have to replace a piece of play equipment? Things like that. Doesn't all have to be left to March. You can be thinking about it. You can even update it as you go along through the year. I'll put my hand up and say I'm not generally that organised, but I know some clerks are. There are some other things that you can just be thinking about. You know, if you've got a public work loan, things like that, you can be just double checking all of those kind of things. So there are things that we can be doing. You could be checking with your internal auditor whether there's anything specific they want to look at this year. You know, maybe it's your cemetery books if you've got a cemetery, something different. Okay, so as we come to close, this is a quote I found which I quite liked. Productivity is never an accident. It is always the result of a commitment to excellence, intelligent planning, and focused effort. So you have these sent to you, so you can reread that again. But a lot of what we need to prepare, we do have to put in a little bit of effort and commitment and maybe a bit of planning to make sure it can all happen on time. So thank you for listening. I hope that was interesting and helpful. John, would you like me to answer questions and then we can do the
we'll go to questions in a minute. Thank you very much, Becky. Thank you, John, for juggling, talking, and the dog. What's your dog's name?
She's called Hope.
Hope. Are we allowed to see Hope?
She won't do it now, will she? No.
Cool. Yeah, so we'll go to questions in a minute. I'm just going to actually share kind of our kind of view on trying to manage stress and anxiety at Scribe. You know, we're only here for a few minutes. You know, we talk to many councils, hundreds of councils each week, each month. And it's really to try and understand their workflow and how they prioritize their work related to council. And we came up with this model. It's borrowed from Maslow hierarchy of needs. And we kind of just prioritize like the work that you need to do. And also it's related to the workflow. And at the top of the pyramid, you know, the ultimate goal of doing your year end, having your external audit if it's relevant to you. And down the bottom of the pyramid is all the administration. So, you know, on the administration layer, it's adding your transactions, doing your bank reconciliation and any VAT claims that you might need to do. Then after you're doing all your basic admin, you monitor your kind of budget versus your actuals. And then you're going into, you know, doing your AGAR statements and internal audits and finally completing. And what we find is, you know, if you follow the kind of working pattern like that, where you do the bulk of your work in the admin layer, then it just gets easier and easier when it comes to year end, because there's not much work to do because you've kind of been taking care of things on a monthly basis throughout the year. But what we find is, you know, customers before they join us, we've named it the cash book crisis, and basically a lot of the admin that you're meant to be doing every month basically gets put to the side, never gets prioritized, and then that stress and anxiety, constant worry builds up over the year, and then there's this big lots of effort to doing the AGAR as we're entering that phase now. So that's kind of our first bit of advice to all of you, which is related to what Beckie's saying. It's just, we say think cash book first. So always just try and take care of your, do little bits throughout the year, every month, taking care of keeping all your cash book up to date, all your transactions recorded, doing your bank reconciliation, and then it will come it'll be much easier when it comes to the end. We also got a year-end checklist. I'll drop a link of that into the chat there, that you can download, which it helps you see what you need to do for year-end basic checklist, which should hopefully help you prepare and plan, and then you can put it into a plan as Beckie suggests. And then also we've got kind of a general habits that you need to take care of throughout the year. And this stress and anxiety that's, created at year end is exactly why we created Scribe, the product, bespoke, purpose-built software for managing financial accounts at your council. So it's very easy to use. You can access it online anywhere, and it ensures that you're compliant and your data is safe and secure, etc. And the good thing about Scribe is, on this next slide here, you do most of your work in the cash book. So you do all your administration on a weekly, monthly and quarterly basis for budgeting. If you take care of that, then the rest is basically automated, because all your reports work out of the box. Your year-end statement, your AGAR, it's just a click of a button. So all that stress and anxiety is removed through using purpose-built software. And then what we find is, then you free up some time. And how are you going to use that free time that you gained from using purpose-built software? And that could be, spending, having more time with yourself, going for walks, etc. And one of our customers, Sally, she actually used that time when we asked her the time she gained to get really good at applying for grants, and she was successfully able to do that and really had a bigger impact on her community. Yes, so if you ever want to know more, just come say hi. You can drop a hi in the chat there, and we can reach out to you. But yes, so any questions? So Beckie's we've got a few minutes here for any questions. You can put your hand up, raise your hand. And then I'll ask you to ask the question, and turn your mic on and video on would be good. Or, any particular challenges people are having right now, and what really worries them. Any questions? There must be a question. Are you all absolutely nailing it? You're not stressed, not worried, you're fully confident? What do people do, personally for themselves? What do you like to do, Beckie, in terms of personal health?
So other than walking the dog, which obviously has to be done every day, I never, ever, in 100 million trillion years thought I would say this, but I've turned into a bit of a runner. Okay. So I did Couch to 5K with a group. It's called Let's Run Girls. It's all over the country. So you're not doing it on your own. There's a group of you. So I did that, and now I run 5K at least every Saturday morning, and sometimes again in the week.
Awesome. You're doing the park run?
So the times clash. I have done park runs, but the times clash. And I tell you what, it's the best cup of tea afterwards ever.
Good. I highly recommend park run. They've recently changed. They're trying to open up, because it can be a little bit intimidating, park run, but now they're also promoting walking, so you can go along now, walk, run, start doing that, and you can gradually start building up to park. Running is my main stress reliever, and unfortunately I've got an injury at the moment, and I normally do 40-50 miles a week. And I've got an injury which I've had December, so I haven't run for 4 weeks now, and having a big negative impact on my mental health. I didn't realize how important it is, but running is a really good accessible way, you know, you can, wherever you are, you can normally go running, you know, to squeeze a run in every time. Yes, couch to 5K and park run is brilliant.
Yeah. The other thing I'd just like to say is self-care doesn't have to be a huge, massive thing. You can do something that's just a couple of minutes every day. So one of the things I talk about quite often, if any of you've heard me talk before, is that 1 minute meditation. So you just have to focus on your breath, just breathe for 1 minute. And honestly, it goes by so quickly, but it just helps you settle. If you haven't even got time for that, put your feet on the ground, because then you're literally grounding yourself on the floor, and take 3 deep breaths. And it just gives you a moment to settle. If you've got a problem you're grasping with and you can feel your mind beginning to panic, just settles you to look at it again.
Good, good. Yeah, I've got some more comments down park run. Or well done, Courtney. I assume that's your first half marathon that you're training for in April. Where are you training for that one? You can, yeah, Courtney, you want to come on? Are you there, Courtney? Or you're not brave? There
Yes. Yeah, I'm just training in running around my village, but it's the London Landmarks half marathon that my husband did last year, and we're doing it together for the Bliss charity.
Cool. And you're new to running, or?
I did running in like school, but that was quite a while ago, so getting back into it now.
Awesome. Very good. Yeah. And also comments here on park run. Actually, park run is the most successful public health intervention ever. You know, you think of all government interventions or anything like that, you know, yeah, park run is huge success in terms of improving public health, but not only changing people's initial behavior, but long-term change that happens in people. And that was started, I can't remember his name, but he started because he was suffering from depression and anxiety. He previously was a professional runner and went on hard times, and then he started getting back into running. Create park run. If there's any more, not any kind of more chat, anyone want to share anything? Otherwise,
Can I just pick up on something?
Yes.
So Catherine said, for those of us with small councils with few hours, finding the extra time at the end of the year can be a challenge. And Catherine, I would just say do as much as you can in advance. Even 12 hours, which I do for an active council, means there is not a lot of spare time. And I learned through my first years, if I could do my prep as much as I could before actually we hit the end of March, then half the job's done. Somebody else said about the never-ending clerk to-do list, and I'm sure we all have those. You know, and somebody then emails or phones with something else. And I don't know if you all do this, but one of the things I have on my email replies is at the bottom it says, you know, the GDPR bit, and then it says I only work part-time, so my answers may not be immediate. And somebody years ago once said to me, treat your emails like the post. You know, people think they're going to get a response 10 minutes later. Take that out of your head. No, it doesn't have to be. It can be like the post. So maybe in 2 or 3 days, and that would be fine. And I have found that really, really useful advice.
Great. Thanks, Becky. We got a hand. Yeah, Jackie. Hello, Jackie. How are you doing? Where are you based?
Oh, well, I work for 3 different parish councils, and I was just going to say that the biggest one where we used to have like a half-an-hour lunch break, but everyone's was staggered, and the phones were always ringing when you're eating your sandwiches and you didn't actually have a break. So they went to staffing committee and made it so the office shut for half an hour for everyone. So we all go walking now in our half an hour, and it honestly made such a difference because you're away from the office. You can have a chat because you don't often get to chat when you're working. So yeah, it's just so good. And then you come back and you've got a clear head and you're ready to start again, and the phone's out, you're not listening to phones ringing. It's made a big difference in our office.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that, Jackie. And also, you know, yeah, you making the right call, because there's no emergencies. You know, those calls, they can go to answer phone or they'll call back. Yeah, you don't need to answer the phone straight away. But yeah, lovely sharing that one. Anyone else got?
Sorry, John, somebody else has mentioned it, that April and May, Pauline says April and May is always busy, and she books in extra hours and then takes August off. And
Yeah.
that's something that I have negotiated with every council, because it's so flexible. I say there will be times of the year, like March and April, when it's really, really busy. So I'll do extra hours. And then when it's not so busy, I'll do fewer hours. And that's always been fine. So that's another way of doing it.
Anyone else got any other tips, like Jackie shared, that changes they've made within their working environment or personally that they think other people might benefit from? No. Good. Oh, here we go, David.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not feeling outnumbered in any way here, but yeah, I'm a clerk for 2 councils, and I'm also a vice chairman of my local council, so I'm a councillor and clerk, which could have been very stressful. And give you a bit of background, I suddenly had a small stroke about June last year, and that kind of was the big wake-up call for me. I've always been active, but not, you know, the look of me tells you that, you know, I'm not meant to be as fit as I was, but as an ex-rugby player, you know, we still keep that shape, as should I say. But no, I've been negotiating, like people have been saying, about time and time management. I've made good use of the working groups for councillors and trying to delegate, you know, some of the workload that they push to clerks, push it back a bit, because, you know, either that or they don't have a function on the council. They don't, yes, they talk and it's a talking shop for 2 hours, but then you want them to do something in between. And I think that's quite important, that, you know, you're not seen as the workhorse, but the council is seen to do the work as well. You know, the councillors, should I say. And that's very helpful for them to get involved as well, because sometimes they feel disjointed. You know, you'll have a chairman and a vice chairman working well, you know, and putting forward ideas and working that way, but not with others. That's all I had to say. Thank you very much. It's very good, but like all of us, I'm busy this morning. I'm doing play equipment, and I've got a sill to have in by the end of January. So thank you very much.
Great. That was a great one. You mentioned delegate it. I mean, Jessica, we recently wrote a blog post on the Eisenhower matrix, decision matrix and prioritization. And one of the ones there is when you've got something urgent but not important, you can delegate it. So yeah, we'll share a blog post on that. Nice one. Thank you, David. Jackie, you got your hand up again. Yep, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, only to say that sometimes one of my smaller councils, they want you to try and get all this stuff done, which is practically impossible. So I just showed them my timesheet and said, okay, you want this many meetings a month, the agendas take this much time, the minutes take this much time, and the actions, I'm only at, you know, if you look at my timesheet, I've only got 2 hours to action all these things. So then we decided as a council what my priorities would be, and then every full council meeting I can just update them on where I am, so that they can see I'm working through the list, but they've got a more realistic idea of what they're actually going to get done, and maybe they've put aside some of the longer term projects, because if they're unwilling to get involved, then it's just impossible with the hours that you have. But if their expectations are realistic, it puts less pressure on you as the clerk then, doesn't it?
Yes, totally. Yeah, being transparent about what your workload is like and showing them a prioritized list, then yeah, they know what to expect. Yeah, really good. And it can just be a very simple list, you know, bullet point list, you know, and if it's in priority order, you know, that's kind of what you're working through based on the time you have available. Cool. Yes, so we call a wrap on that. Thank you for everyone's contribution, and thank you for Beckie for a great talk.